So with our lovely Miss Z, ready Ziva? There are some lovely noises going on in the building, so some drilling. So I want her to get a little bit more comfortable. We were doing a bit of play, so she loves the flirt pole. So she's actually been able to, like this morning when she was out earlier, just doing some practice and some play. She was able to see the other pup and then be able to sort of acknowledge her and then bounce back and do some play instead of getting potentially overwhelmed or flustered. So remember, as I was mentioning a little bit earlier, is play could be, oh, got stuck. Play could be another great way to build her comfort range around things that she finds either overwhelming or a little exciting. And then you can even start to include play while there could be something going by the home or while there's something going by the yard. And if you start to pair sometimes a really fun adventure with her with no stimulus nearby. So remember, a lot of times we tend to want to try to work the skills when we need them. And I know that we need her to start realizing that these skills don't instantly equal trigger about to appear or come around the corner. So if let's say the only time we ever did play was to try to occupy her or build up a new association with that trigger or distraction, it's going to start to become the beginning or the bringer of the bad. So you want to be careful not to poison a cue, so like a sit or a recall or a game that's always paired with the thing she finds disliked or feelings of uncomfortable around certain things. So if let's say, for example, let's say your babe doesn't love going into the tub. If you were to, for example, lure her with a big chunk of hot dog or chicken into the bathroom and then close the door and then, put her into the bathtub, she's going to start to think that potentially luring her later could be also then the bringer of the tub. So we want to be careful not to poison our behaviors or cues, and also not to poison, for example, our lure, so our food or reinforcement. So right now we're just getting her warmed up with some lovely Find Its. Ziva. Yes. And I like to work a little bit through that name recognition just to get her in the groove. Remember that if your babes can only really function in certain bubbles, that doesn't mean that they're not doing a great job with their skill set. It just typically means that in the environments where they're failing is where they're also struggling. So either they haven't generalized those skills to those environments, or the environment is so strenuous or overwhelming that they shut down or just explode or get way too jazzed. So we want to, again, like I mentioned previously, is work her under threshold. So, but we're going to also make sure that we can practice some of these other behaviors to start building in instead of the skills we're not a huge fan of. So obviously her barking and lunging, even though I know it's overwhelming for her and for us, we want to try to prevent that setup to our best ability, like I mentioned on Tuesday, but also make sure that we're starting to implement what we could do instead to replace the behaviors we don't really love. So even though she's trying to communicate her comfort range, we want to say, hey, no worries, madam, we can help you, but let's try this instead. So some of my favorites are, again, some of the fronts, working a U-turn, the Find Its, of course. You could also start to work, I know some of the skills from the reactive dog packet, like the go sniff, obviously also the watch that or look at that game. So if you've been doing, for example, eyes on you as in a look or watch me, you would have a different slogan for her looking at something else. My little one's singing to herself and I thought she wanted something. Ready? Find it. So when practicing some of these games, we're going to go ahead and warm up with, again, these Find Its, and then we're going to go into working some of these skills. If, again, it's easier for your dance moves and hers to learn them, of course, in the home without equipment on, perfectly fine. Ab, are you trying to talk to Mama? Okay, no, that's fine then. All right, ready? Find it. So when it comes to our lovely lady, you can see that she's a lot more comfortable today than she was the first day with my littler one, with the sights and sounds that are the building, with the distraction levels off in the distance. So some of my favorite behaviors are working, for example, a front. Front, for example, I like to start off with the puppy in front of me already and build into, while you're in movement or motion or doing something, bring them from another position into a front position. So right there, I'm just going to feed her for that gorgeous little sit. So remember, if we don't feed for like the glimmers of behavior or skills that we want to have happen again, we may always be asking them when it's too hard. So if she can offer behavior, you can start to capture it. Remember, the ways that we're going to create behavior are through luring, so using food to create behavior. So if, let's say, for example, we wanted our little lady to go into a sit, but maybe she was a little bit unsure, we would show her the food, bring it up and above her little head, wait for the bum, and then go ahead and feed for that moment. So it would be using the food to lure her. Remember, we want to fade out that lure as quickly as we can. So let's say, for example, now my hand is empty. I might go into a little stand, and she's like, my brain's slightly melted. She did some lovely play earlier, but she's a little bit stressed with the funny noises. So if, let's say, I didn't get her, I'm going to lure her just to get her to understand it a little bit better. So as opposed to me saying over and over, stand, 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 or up, or whatever slogan we're using for a standing position, we'd want to go ahead and maybe go sit, and then yes to feed. If we were pretty certain she was going to rock it, I then preemptively said the cue word. If, again, she's doing a lot of itching, it could be that she's not as familiar with her harness. I don't know how often she wears it, but these were several little stress signals. So like I mentioned previously, she is not melting into a puddle and being unable to work or think or learn new skills. Ziva, yes. But I want you guys to be aware of, at the whisper, is she already saying she's having a hard time? Because a lot of my students will sometimes say, oh, it came out of nowhere, or it all of a sudden, was this big thing. And remember, behavior doesn't come out of nowhere. It tends to build. So it's a little bit of that snowball effect where it's kind of rolling and getting bigger and bigger. So ready, Ziva? Yes, nice job, cuteness. So if you're finding that you're seeing shake-offs, you're seeing excessive panting, you're seeing pacing, you're seeing whining or hearing whining, and you're seeing her drop to the ground and itch, and then sometimes even she did a genital check, which I know is weird for us, but these are typically stress signals for dogs. So she is pretty much saying like, hey, this is a bit overwhelming. I'm not too sure what to expect. I'm feeling a little bit overwhelmed. Maybe help me, or make sure to give me space or some time to work it or decompress. So the fact that she's still taking food and is still being rather responsive, sit, means that she's not so overwhelmed that she's not also learning or working through some of this, anxiety that she's dealing with. But let's say, for example, we're going to work a little bit with those fronts. So with a front, I'm just going to collect up some of the snacks she likes the best. I know I have some of her kibble in here, but depending on the comfort range and the distraction level, she's not a huge fan for working for pennies on the hour. She'd rather have a little bit of a bigger, more appealing paycheck. So what I'm going to do with my little lady is I've got several snacks in my hands, so I can do this several reps. Show her my snacks. I normally like to load up both my hands so my puppy's not crooked. I'm going to show her the snacks, and right now pull her into my space and feed for that. And again, pull her into the space, feed for that. So when I'm saying pull her in, it doesn't mean physically pull her on equipment or, yank her around. What it means is to get her focus and have her come into your space and feed for those moments. So the benefit of a front behavior is, let's say you're walking, there's a squirrel up ahead or something that you've noticed. You could be walking with your pup, and let's say, again, there's the distraction. You could bring her into a front. And then eventually that front could turn into a little sit position. It could turn into an eyes on you, and you could feed for that lovely focus. So if, let's say, stationary positions, though, are too hard when other things are going around, movement behaviors are even better. So movement could be go sniff. So go let her explore the environment, go sniff the grass, go sniff and go potty, whatever it might be. It could also go into find it's, where she is scavenging for those crumbs or those goodies that you threw onto the floor. Ready? Ziva. Yes, so lovely name recognition. She's like, hold on, I dropped one earlier. Nice. So let's say we have these beautiful fronts. We could go ahead and be walking a little bit. And let's say I've got her attention on my lower hand for now, where it's the target hand. And then I could go from here and then bring her into my front. Nice. And then feed for that response. Good girl. So she's doing a beautiful job. She's feeling much more cozy today, which is great. So I'm going to send her away for another little snack, get her up and wiggling. You'll see that I like to sort of on purpose send them away so they can come back to you. Yes. And then I feed for that lovely moment where they come back to your space, because we want her to be able to think that reorienting to you has great value. So another great option is, while you're practicing moving around the environment with her, is, again, grab a couple tidbits. So you have a couple things to offer throughout the behavior, because remember, whenever there's new skills or new concepts for her, I want her to think that getting several snacks throughout the behavior will build more value than one snack at the very end when she doesn't understand maybe the concept in the first place. So let's say, for example, we have our lovely lady and we're going to practice some U-turns. So she could be on the left or the right, whichever, it doesn't matter. She's walking and approaching, and now we're going to feed her as we pivot and move away from the thing. If, for example, U-turns are a little bit awkward in the beginning, remember, just like with anything new, it's not going to be the most pristine, most beautiful thing you've ever done. But this is why I like to work these skills in a calm and comfortable environment first, like your house, your yard, in your kitchen or living room. So again, right here, she did a great job checking in as she heard those funny noises. So again, we're going to go ahead and get her up and wiggling. I'm going to do another little U-turn with her. So let's say, again, we're approaching, and then we pretend, oh gosh, spooky creature. And we'll go right into, oh, she says, lady, it fell right out of my mouth. But then we'd go right into that little U-turn, and we'd feed as we're disengaging. If it was a much harder distraction, obviously the further distance you are from something, the easier it is. So remember, favorite places to practice might be the backyard with little adventures to the side or front yard. But you may also find that from that step, going and checking out sniffspot.com, like I mentioned, to find an area that is safe for her and you guys to practice in without extra distractions could be another great venue. Parking lots and open fields, another great option for practice for field trips. So again, she's a little distracted. She maybe has to go get a little drink, which is always fine. So right here, she's watching my little Ziva. Come. Yes. What a good girl. Nice job, madam. So with our beautiful little Ms. Z, you can see that she's got some really nice bounce back from the environment and distractions. If, again, you're getting none of that, then you're probably working in your yellow to red zones always versus working typically in the green to sometimes yellow. So with my lovely Ms. Z, I want to also work a little bit with, she's like, this is my leash, and she smells the flirt pull potentially up a little higher. Ready? Ziva. So if, for example, she's a little distracted, she's like, my leash got caught on my own little toe. So let's say, for example, there's a little moment where she gets a little distracted by the environment. I'm just going to move this out of the way so it's less stuck over there. Ready, cuteness? And we'll just go right into a little find it. So remember that when your babes are a little bit flustered, they might try to get themselves distracted by the environment. This is why I'm a huge advocate of allowing for sniffy walks. There's this concept where your dog has to be 24/7 in this pristine heel position, which is really lame from your dog's perspective. This doesn't mean you can't eventually have a beautiful loose leash walking moment or heel behavior, but I would recommend to also have your off-duty softness through your gear and allow for sniffing. A lot of times for nervous dogs, not being able to go smell the environment is like us being blindfolded as we're entering a new space and we can't see what's coming ahead of us or around the bend because, again, we have our eyes covered. Ziva says, I think I really would rather play. If Ms. Z, though, at times does want to do a little bit of play, we can definitely rotate through sometimes practice with some big girl skills and then into some play instead. So you ready? And then we'll go say, go get it. And now my toy comes alive and we can go play. So if your puppy needs little breaks or little recesses through some of the big mental strained moments, don't forget play is a great way to also make sure behavior becomes more well rehearsed, but also it's actually much easier for them to attain and understand material when play is also involved. So if, for example, it's always, very boring and just working our skill set, I know it's nice to do lots of reps and get them comfortable, but sometimes just like with us, there's only so much that we want to do before we want to take a break and do something that comes a little bit easier to us, which could be playing, games or activities we like to do, or it could be going out for our leisurely walk. So again, remember, your babe is going to have things that she finds very appealing. Nice job, Ms. Z. And those could be things that you could use for engagement and reinforcement and for building confidence. So you'll see that with Ms. Z, as I'm playing with the flirt pole, I keep it nice and low so it's not too hard for her. And I let her catch the critter quite often because I don't want her to feel that this is such an unattainable game that it's not worth her effort. So remember, play should be fun from both ends. So with Miss Lovely, you can see that the flirt pole is one of her favorites. And it's a really great way to maybe go to one of those new places, practice a couple little foundation behaviors like those fronts, name recognition, reorienting back to you from a smell or a distraction, but make sure coming back to your space is not the end of fun. So you can see with Ms. Z, she might really love maybe going out to an open space, maybe the backyard, build up that while she's hearing the neighbors doing something, or she hears a dog off in the distance barking, now it could also be paired with some games or some play. And that might be another great way to get our little lady more comfortable and resilient while working some of the skills that come natural to her, which would be her chasing, her biting, her grabbing of the item. Oh my goodness, so tired. Nice job, cuteness. So remember, play should also not be so lengthy that either the dog is getting way too overstimulated or that the dog is, for example, trying to be like, I've had it, like I'm melting. So make sure you always want them kind of wanting more. So if you keep going to the point where she just wants to give up and lay down, then you might make play into almost like boot camp where it's always a struggle and they just want it to end because they get so tired. Also, you want to be careful. She's not fully done growing. So you saw that when I was playing with her, I wasn't making it too extreme and she wasn't running too quickly. So because I don't want her to slip and injure herself or potentially like tweak something. So for our lovely lady, practice play, but where you have that on and off switch. And that can be immensely helpful for dogs that struggle with big emotions because feeling overwhelmed can be very much like feeling overexcited. And then when they're in those bubbles, it's hard to come back because they get so jazzed, the brain shuts off. So I would recommend to, on purpose, sometimes get her a little excited and go back to a softer behavior. So it could be getting her a little jazzed and a little excitable and playy, like maybe she's tugging or she's doing a fun toy, and then go into a find it, and then work a little sit or work some eye contact, and then go into another little exercise with play. But you can see that she's still able to really nicely do some nice, really good check-ins and some reorientation to me. So again, I'm going to send her away for another little find it and see if she can do another bounce back. Ready, Ziva? Great job. So we'll give her a little break from this, but then we're going to work a few more skills too. Good job, cuteness. What a smart girl.